Well, Pierre, for a third consecutive year, the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers in the first round. I wonder, if you're the LA Kings, you've gone to bed at night thinking about the Edmonton Oilers every night for 2 years in a row as the bane of your existence. Is it tougher for the Oilers to do this a third consecutive year, despite the fact that they are clearly the favorites? By the way, have a head coach who wasn't here for either of those two series wins.
And I think that's where I want to start, because I think it's so interesting that the players know each other so well on both these teams, the cores of both teams, the management, same GMs on both teams for all these series. The head coach is different for both teams. Now, Jim Hiller of LA was an assistant, and so he lived these playoff series, but still, he's now calling the shots. And Chris Knobloch told us today that, yes, he's had to lean on other people in the Oilers organization to sort of get some intel on how those two playoff series played out and things to look for. And obviously, we think that's Glenn Gulletson, probably Paul Coffey. But still, it's interesting that the two head coaches are probably the only two people in this series who haven't lived this in these particular roles.
So the LA Kings come with this neutral zone coverage, 1-3-1. They like to gum it up. They try and force you to dump the puck in. They've done it in both of the previous years. It has not worked in either of the previous years against the Edmonton Oilers. So you wonder, why would it potentially work in this, their third crack at it? The systems and the patience in this series are really going to be critical.
Yeah, and the Oilers know that, and they've lived it, and they know that they can't panic and try to force plays and feed the LA Kings offense. And the Kings are so good at it. I mean, when the Kings are playing at their best, they play a counter game and jump on you and really want you to feed into where that funnel is going. But as you said, the Oilers have seen it. So I think we're in for a bit of a surprise at some point in this series, that LA knows it can't just rely on that at some point the Kings have to be a little more forceful in their approach if they're going to pull off this upset. That's my prediction.
Also notable that in both series, McDavid and Draisaitl start the series on separate lines, and then if things aren't going well, they finish the series playing together on a line, Pierre. That's where the success against the Kings has come from after that switch, yet Chris Knobloch intends on starting them on separate lines. I guess it makes sense because it's kind of like, in case of emergency, break glass, as opposed to starting them together, and if it doesn't go well, where do you go? But it looks like they're going to start on separate lines.
They are, and I get it in terms of matchups and a balanced approach, but no team in the league has that in their back pocket. Yeah. I mean, that's insane, really. And they've used it late in series against the Kings when they really, really felt they had to. Again, different head coach, but he too has used it when he's had to.
Oilers winning 3 of the 4 games against the Kings during the regular season this year. As for practice today, Pierre, a couple things that were notable. Evander Kane was not on the ice yesterday. Flat out told the media after practice he's been dealing with a sports hernia injury. He's been dealing with it all year long. It flared up after the Vancouver game late in the regular season, and he decided to take some time off the ice to try and let it heal. So he was back on the ice today, but interesting his positioning on a fourth line, along with Sam Carrick and Matthias Janmark. Kane is not a fourth-line player, but maybe battling through this injury, it's where he's going to start. Fair to say he has a chance to impact this series, but can he do it if he's not healthy?
And we'll see how those minutes are doled out for the so-called fourth line. I'm interested in that too, whether that line gets a bit more of a prominent role than your average fourth line. But, I would say, and I think you'll agree, that Evander Kane's better moments as an Edmonton Oiler has been in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is why you have this guy on this team.
In a top 6 role, by the way.
Yeah, so this is a little different. I have a sense it's about working his way up back to his normal role. But in the meantime, it also means that some players that I thought at least one of them would be in the lineup, Connor Brown, right now looks like he's on the outside looking in for Game 1. I thought Connor Brown had a really solid final 20 games of the regular season. He's a good penalty killer. Derek Ryan also looking like he's out.
Right-handed center, yep.
Another good penalty killer. So the only thing I can tell you is that I don't know how many teams in the league start the playoffs and are able to scratch a Connor Brown and Derek Ryan. That shows you the depth that this Oilers team has to start the playoffs.
Part of that depth comes from a youngster like Dylan Holloway, who was sent down to the American Hockey League after the trade deadline. Had to be disappointing for him. He'd been with the team all year, but he finally got to play big minutes, and he did play big minutes down there. First unit power play, tons of minutes, lots of opportunity. So he gets recalled, Pierre, and the narrative was they're just going to get him some games so they can rest some other guys. Well, the problem, a good problem to have, is Dylan Holloway has blown the doors off. He's been skating fast. He's been hitting hard. He's been piling up goals and points. It looks like he has taken an opportunity to fill in a little bit and turned it into a roster spot in Game 1 of the playoffs. It looks that way. It's something.
Well, what I love about that is it speaks to when a team has a true meritocracy. If you're going to play that well and force their hand, you will get a chance. I think every championship team has to have that for people to believe in the decisions of the coaching staff. Yeah. So I love to see it. Now he has to prove that he can handle the bigger stage. I had a short chat with him after practice today. Couldn't get the smile off his face. He said, I'm so excited for this time of year, and he's earned it.
Everything from the red line in offensively is great for Dylan Holloway. He's going to make or break his opportunity from his own hash marks to the red line. If he can limit mistakes in that area, you build trust with your coaching staff and you make yourself playable. We're really going to be watching for that with Dylan Holloway. So if you're the LA Kings, back-to-back years where you haven't been able to get this done, what are the changes? What are the differences? What are some of the reasons for hope?
Well, first of all, Quinton Byfield in 12 months has taken gigantic steps. He's a star now, and he is hard to handle, and he is so effective for the LA Kings. So the Edmonton Oilers have not seen this version of him in a playoff series. That's number one for me. The other thing is the so-called third line for the LA Kings that you kind of forget about is still a really effective line.
Fiala, Lizotte, and Lewis?
Well, I was going to say Philip Deneau's line, but again...
Okay. Where is the third line?
Well, exactly,
right?
and that's the interesting thing about their lineup. But Arvidsson and Deneau and Moore, the other night when they needed that win to fall into this playoff matchup, they were their best line. Mm-hmm. And Philip Deneau, despite the Kings losing in 2 playoff series against the Edmonton Oilers, Philip Deneau has had his moments for the Kings in these series.
So that definitely gives you hope. They're playing the same system. Maybe a little different look on the blue line as well, defending a little bit. That second pairing is a little bit different, a little more experienced together. Like, they defend well.
Well, and I'm going to be Captain Obvious, but I have to be here. If I'm the LA Kings, what I'm most worried about, honestly, is their goaltending. I mean, there's a reason that we believe, even though no one has confirmed this officially, that they tried to trade for Linus Ullmark at the trade deadline on March 8th. Mm-hmm. Cam Talbot's been up and down. And you know, it's not been a great season for him. He's had some really good moments. Let's not kid ourselves. And he could turn it on here in the playoffs. But I think that's where right now Skinner versus Talbot is a clear advantage for the Edmonton Oilers.
Oilers need to get off to a good start at home, Pierre. The statistics do not show that they've done that. What's the year?
I believe it's 1990. Am I right?
Yeah, it's the early 90s since the Oilers have won Game 1 at home of a playoff series, and certainly not in the last couple of years. So looking to figure out a way to get off to a better start. That will be their task tomorrow against the LA Kings. And maybe Draisaitl and McDavid can stay on separate lines for the entire series. You'll know something has gone well if they do. It'll be a lot of fun here at Edmonton. Oilers and Kings Game 1 set to go tomorrow.